Good morning, everyone. I hope those who are out, they can also hear me and start coming in. Ranjana, can you quickly take a look around and a very big, warm welcome to all of you here at this session, which is themed around well-being and mental health at the 6th Biennial International Conference in Malaysia. It is truly an honor to kick off this particular session. We have been hearing the care levers since morning. And my heart is full and I am just my head is buzzing with ideas that I really don't know how to concentrate and come back to our session, which is really limited more to challenges of mental health. Because in the morning, we heard different countries talking about the progresses made in their countries. We also heard them talking about the challenges. And here in this session, we are going to be concentrating more on mental well-being and emotional well-being and mental health. We heard them talking about the kind of loneliness you feel. Sometimes I feel even pre-care, even before you land up in any kind of alternative care, whether it is institutional or foster care, you've already suffered. You've already suffered a lot of pain, neglect, abuse, loneliness, and then you land up in alternative care, whether residential or otherwise. You still may not be getting those kind of social workers there or mental health experts there who can address those issues. So those issues which you have faced pre-care and then they get compounded in care. And then what happens? More and more issues are there and you continue to feel lonelier. You just don't know how do you cope up with the reality. There is unresolved trauma. I always say trauma is like a scab, it forms a scab and outsiders may not see it, but at the slightest pretext, this scab goes and the blood starts oozing. So it is right there, lodged in your heart. And all this leads to the care levers having problems in developing relationships. We recently did a study on relationships and marital relationships, especially for care levers, and it came out so clearly because of the unresolved trauma in their childhood. They are not able to develop enough trust, and they are not able to have enough good relationships. Social stigma continues. Oh, you are coming from this kind of a background, so what do you know of reality? They have a lot of stories to share, but who is there to listen? We talked about, and I was very happy to see the recommendations. The first recommendation was a trained social worker. I remember one of the girls, she told me very clearly that for me, it is my life. But for my social worker, it is a job. The moment you start understanding the difference between life and job, then you start doing your things just the way the care levers need you. In this morning only, I by chance read the new Minister for Children and Families from Labour Party. His name is Josh McAllister. He said he wanted the promotion of lifelong, loving relationships for children and young people to be the obsession of the care system. When is our care system going to be obsessed by doing the right thing for our children in care and children who go into aftercare? Till that obsession seizes us, I don't think we will be moving along slowly. I mean, from 2014, when the BICON was first launched, till date, you can see the differences. The little bit is coming, but you must have noticed in every country, they showed the gains, they showed the challenges, and the challenges were also talking about those gains only, because those gains are coming only to a handful. I have some really amazing panel of speakers here. 3 powerful, incredible voices who bring lived experiences and professional insight and deep compassion to the conversation and are truly care leaders. Somewhere they've been able to overcome all the trauma that they had faced. And here we have Rashila. She's joining us from Nepal. Please come. She's a care experience youth from Shine Together. She's an active member of Shine Together Care Experience Network, and she's currently pursuing her bachelor's in psychology and social work. Next is Eric. Eric Sivanesh. We have already heard him. We are all so impressed by what all he said. He's a care leaver from Malaysia and now works as a medical doctor. I thought you would be a psychology doctor. And the last but not the least is Shankar Pradhan. He is actually a psychologist and a behavior therapist from India. He is the founder of the Gujarat Care Leaver Association, as well as he works as a project coordinator at Sarthi Association of Indian Care Leavers. And I'm very proud to say he is also a LIFT fellow. LIFT is Living in Fellowship Together, where care leavers are supposed to be giving their projects by which they could help other care leavers. So we have 2 LIFT fellows in this crowd today. So a very real warm welcome. This conversation, all of us know, is so urgent and so important. Across the globe, we know that the children who are growing up in alternative care, what kind of pains and what kind of circumstances they go through, the invisible wounds. So they are visible, but we prefer not to look at them. We prefer that it remains invisible. And that's why, and imagine the kind of ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences everyone has faced. So it's very, very important that the mental health of children in care and after care is looked after. Today we have a safe place, so I'm sure I will not be rubbing you on the wrong side, and I'll be able to ask questions which will not disturb you too much, because all of you are so resilient and brave. You've been talking about your personal lives also very, very clearly, because all of you feel that by talking like this, you are going to be encouraging others also to open up. So I'm really thankful to the organizing committee for giving me this, my favorite subject, which is mental health of care leavers. Okay, now let's ask, what I am going to do is, we will have, depending on the time, we will have a couple of, why is it showing 32 minutes only? Can somebody check it? Because I've just started speaking, I couldn't have taken half an hour. Can somebody check it, please? The ticker? Yeah. So we will be asking, some questions which are like a, fireside chat, where you can take your time, you can answer, but I'm not going to leave you alone. And because I know all of you are full of humor as well as resilience, so I'm also going to ask you some rapid fire questions at the end, which will wive you up and bring us all a new light. Okay, so let us start with Eric. Eric, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and why do you think mental health and emotional well-being are so important for young people in care and after care? Would you like to throw some light on, if these issues are not addressed, how do they affect a child in care, and when they are going towards aftercare, when, like somebody said, at the age of 15, we start worrying. So that re-traumatization starts happening, that it is about time for me to leave, and where do I go? So why don't you say something about this, your experiences?
Hello, everyone. I'm sure some of you all have heard me presenting earlier. Earlier, Nisha from Nepal said, Eric, you didn't introduce yourself just now. I noticed that. So now I'm going to introduce myself, Nisha. Okay, I'm Eric, one of the care leavers from Malaysia. Also, I'm a medical officer working for the Ministry of Health, currently working in Sabah. So I'm all the way from Sabah. Okay, to answer the question, uh, but having lived in an institution, I can tell you there's three things that I've learned. Number one is resilience. Number two is strength. And number three is independence. Not only that I've learned these three things, it also showed me that how invisible the emotional pain can be. Because behind every smile of a child in a home, there's a story of hope, there's uncertainty, and also there is loss. Now, why mental health and well being matters deeply for me? Because it's not just about surviving the system, it is about learning to live, learning to have a dream. And also, I believe that we all, every single one, every single children living in institution deserves happiness too. Now, for me, mental health means giving every young children, especially children living in institution, a space to heal. And let me tell you something, uh, like what I mentioned earlier, it's very abnormal for a child separated from the family or brought away from the family and put in an institution itself is an abnormal thing. The child is traumatized. I was traumatized. All four of my siblings were traumatized. Got into the car, loaded and unloaded, and the car left. Traumatizing. But did I get the counseling that I needed? No. And am I suffering some of the consequences due to that? Yes. That's the reason why I'm here today. Because I want children who are already living in an institution to have the help that they need as early as possible. This is me talking about every single one of them, not just the troubled child. Even the child who doesn't seem trouble, minding his or her own business, every single one of them, their well-being and their mental health need to be taken into consideration. Okay. And also not only to space to heal, the support to grow, and of course the courage to believe that their past is not the limit. It is just the beginning of who they are meant to become. Thank you.
So beautifully said. Actually, each of you carry a story of hope as well as uncertainty, because you just don't know what's going to be future tomorrow. I remember one little incident. There was this, I had just started, with some children, and there was this girl, she was crying a lot. She cried and she said that nobody allowed me to study, and that's why my paper went bad. So I asked the caregivers, they said she was studying till 10:30 in the night, and I was sitting right before her, and I was not able to understand what's going on. Then I asked my psychologist, and he told me, imagine, you have lost your parents, you are alone, you are in a room which has only study tables and no human being, everybody has gone off to sleep, and outside the trees are rustling, and what would you feel? Would you feel like studying? So in her own way, she's telling you that nobody stayed with me. Had it been my mother, she would have sat by me and I would have studied. So I think mental health is a very big problem, and there are very few mental health specialists available even in such a big country as India. We don't have enough mental health consultants. So I think these are little things which can be trained to social workers so that they can, address these unaddressed traumas. Thank you for sharing this. Now the next question comes to you, Shankar. You have walked this path both as a caregiver and now as a mental health professional. What have you seen in terms of mental health challenges among care experienced youth? I also would like to know, did you feel the stigmas or the systemic barriers that really make it difficult for any child in care or after care to open up and access support. Because I remember in India, it was some 15, 20 years back when we started our mental health program. Before that, I was told, pagal hai means, is he a mad person that he needs mental health therapy? So the things have changed now. So what do you think? If you are comfortable, maybe you can share from your own life, because I've heard you earlier.
So thank you, ma'am. Before I share about all the answers, as a mental health professionals, when we go to platforms to share about mental health, we give them a disclaimer that whatever we are sharing is just an experience. If you getting any ideas about it, if you are going through any mental health issue, please consult a professional. Not whatever we are sharing is not for your example. You should be implementing in your life the negative example. So that I'm just giving a disclaimer. So yes, there are a few things like I would really like to share with an example. As a mental health, myself a caregiver experience and mental health professional, the thing is that being a mental health professional, we say that a doctor need a doctor, a psychologist need a psychologist. So it doesn't only that I'm a care experience or mental health professional, I have also sought a mental health service during my time of struggles. So I remember one of the time where I faced this challenge mostly when I was having this, I was feeling like I'm having a heart attack but it happened to be a panic attack. So I called a caregiver to assist me to the emergency, and he casually replied, Shankar Bhaiya, I am doing fielding, I'm playing cricket, so I can't come. So that was his response, because he doesn't understand the emergency, the meaning of emergency. And I went there, there. So what was the learning? I found that when you go through yourself a lot of things, you absorb. So myself as a caregiver and mental health professionals, I started developing a lot of countering techniques, which helped me a lot, and I could overcome. But most importantly, you have asked me very well that you might have worked and experienced with different caregivers, so which I would like to share. I don't know why a lot of people share with me openly. So by God's grace, I'm very thankful that I'm open to people. So there was one time, like before 6 to 7 months ago, it was horrible for me because the back to back, I was facing a lot of experiences, challenges I was hearing from the caregivers. So one of the care experience came to me and shared after 1 month that he committed suicide and he got survived. And he came and told me, Shankar bhai, I want to talk to you. He did not share any context. He came to me and shared. And I was shocked. Did not know how to respond because I was not prepared that time. Because being a mental health professional, I can't be a counselor for them. I need to be a brother or friend to them. So somehow I am able to manage it. And then there is one time, there is one caregiver. I'm very much close to her. I sometimes go to the office and used to work with her, help her out. So when I used to observe her a lot of time, that how she's doing in her life, managing. So one day I was went to the room, the office, and I was seeing it. I saw her. She was sitting and trying to figure out things, and I just felt to give her a warm hug, and I just said, "Bacha, stand up," stand up, and I just give her a warm hug, and I left the room. Like I went out for my sessions and my work. At the evening, she sent me a message and said, because of that hug, you made me again, you alive me. So that was her message. But why I'm saying this example of hug, I'm very much happy in my life when I moved out of Child Care Institute and I attended Beyond 18 research conference, like the first meeting, I received my first hug from Kiran Bua. So she was the person I received that hug. So today time, I'm very happy that, she's asking me this question, I'm able to share. So the understanding of hug, I understood from her and from other people. So now whenever I meet with caregivers, when they share a lot of challenges, just give them a hug or hold their hands. So thank you for that sharing. Uh, yes, so this is what I like to share. Yeah, thank you.
I don't really remember, but of course, all the care levers are very near to my heart. Yeah, so now, one more thing that I have been thinking, like you were talking about the troubled child. What is happening is, why do they become troubled? Why do they start, enacting in the way which is not socially acceptable? Because this kind of a behavior becomes their survival strategy. And we as social workers, we as psychologists or people who are working with the children, if we understand that it is a survival strategy and how to crack it, then only we'll be able to help. Otherwise, it just gets passed on as, behavior problem. So, okay, Rashila, again, now, can you introduce yourself? And would you like to throw some light on how being separated at such a young age as you did, you must have felt, a loss of identity. How, when you grew up, you tried to reclaim your sense of identity later in life?
So I would like to start with a small quote. It says that it is said that a person identity is shaped by the root they belong from, the love they receive, and the belonging they feel. But what happens when those roots are cut off too early? When a child is separated from their family before they even understand the word family truly means. Namaste and hello everybody. My name is Rasila and my story begins in a small village where my parents sent me and my three sisters and my other two sisters to a far place from my home in a city called Kathmandu. Because my family could not afford and they could not feed us, nor could they send us to school like any parents. They wanted the best life for their children. In the state-led organization, if I remember well, we three sisters lived there for maybe 3 years, and later on, the two of my sisters were adopted, and yes, they were internationally adopted in 2 different countries. After many years, I got opportunity to reunite with them in 2014 with the help of two organizations, and for that I'm very happy, and I know that where they are today and how they are. So when I was left alone in the orphanage, and after some time, I was sent to another children care home, which was near, but I felt it very far because I was replaced from one place to another. There I met 20 others young girls who were similar in my age, and some were smaller and bigger than me. There I got chance to bond with them as my sisters, and still now I am connected with them. In that orphanages, we were given good food, good education, good shelter, and provided with very good facilities. But some question in our life would always kill us inside. That was, what is an orphan? And what are our parents' name? Something would always make us feel that we don't have anyone in this world. My life changed when my family was found in 2012 with the help of Nepal government and 2 other organizations. And for that, I'm very grateful. Today, I'm happy to know that I have 3 brothers and 3 more sisters. But because of international adoption, I feel that we lack emotional connection as there is language barrier and cultural difference. But still I have a lot of stuff going on with me, adjusting to accept parents and my siblings as my own family after the longer reunification, which was never easy for me to accept them as my mother, father, and brothers. This has deeply also affected my mental well-being, and I have been dealing with mental health condition for more than 3 years now, and I still struggle to fit in with my family and relatives. I have tried my best to reestablish my relationship with them, but due to the longer separation from them, I'm still unable to connect myself with them and my identity. I also want to speak from a place that many of us with lived experience know firsthand. When you are separated from your family at very young age, it is not just about the family you lose. You lose the story, the ritual, the culture, the identity that defines the real you. For many children in care, for many children in care setting, identities become something you survive with. That sense of being in between, not fully part of your parents you left, or not fully accepted in the one you entered. There is always a big question at the back of our mind. But over the course of time, what I have learned is that reclaiming your identity takes a lot, but it is possible, but not always. And it is also not very easy, as many speaker has already mentioned it in the sessions. It does not start with the big, it does not have to always start with the big system, but acceptance can make a little change in a care experience life. I was living with two different identities. Living in institutional care for so long, I was given name by the orphanage as Rosila, and after leaving the care, I came to know that my given name by my parents was Anisa. I found it very difficult to accept whether the new me was real or the old me was. But now I have tried to embrace my real name, and in the journey of identifying my true self, I had came across many obstacles such as my date of birth and the real age. Even if I go back to my village now, the age said by my relatives and the age that I say to others is drastically different, and which sometimes leads me to the confusion whether it is me or not. For me, I would say that the way to know my culture was very easy, a bit easy, because I grew up in the orphanage where they followed Hinduism, but not for the all caregiver who leave the care. I still know some of my friends who still have cultural shock and traditional shock because of the cultural differences they followed in the orphanages and the culture that is followed by their family. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I got opportunity with the help of Sign Together to connect with many young people who shared similar experience like me. This Shine created a platform where I could share my story, my experience, and my current emotion about what I am feeling and what currently is going within my mind without any hesitation. And this place feels a safer space and a safer place. In Nepal, we as a Care Experience Youth Network led this journey for everyone who has gone through this experience. We are reminded that identity is something not given but reclaimed. So when we talk about care reform, we don't just talk about the protection, we also talk about the dignity, about right to know who we are and to be proud of. Thank you.
Wonderful. It really requires courage to tell your story so clearly. And I can feel the international adoption, how it has taken away your sisters. I mean, a new culture, new language, and there is just no commonality. But at the same time, I really feel healing has to be relational, consistent, and inclusive. And that you've been able to find with Shine Together. So this is the value of network, where you come together, you share your stories, and you share your pain with each other. And gradually, you overcome your pain. I don't know whether you can overcome. Maybe only a scab is formed, like I said earlier. Very nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Now, we don't have too much time, so this time, Rasila, you will take less time than them. So it's round 2. Now let's talk about support systems and solutions. Eric, let's talk about what helps. What kind of support systems do you think are needed to help care experienced youth build resilience? Because everyone talked about resilience. How do you build your resilience? Is there any quick fix solution? Is there any quick fix formula that you have? You may quote from your personal experience or maybe from your other, I know that you come from a very good organization. Your organization's head is also sitting there, right there, and you got very good support. So why don't you say something?
I'm going to make it very quick so that my fellow friends could have more time. I'm just going to be
No, you
straight.
can easily take 2-3 minutes, 5-4 minutes, no problem.
Okay, from my experience as someone who grew up in care, okay, I learned that resilience does not happen by accident. You don't have a child living in an institution, suddenly he developed resilience out of nowhere. No. So it grows when a child feels seen, supported, and believed in. Okay, I'm going to say something. If a child living in an institution, would want to ask, do you see me? Or am I just another child in an institution? Do you care about my story? Or am I just a statistics? Do you listen when I speak? Or only when I'm silent? So these are kind of questions that a child would want to ask the adults or caregivers looking after them. And if you could answer all these questions, they might develop resilience. Now, to build up to that kind of resilience, what do we need? We need a few support systems. So what are the support systems? Consistent emotional and mental health support. I use the word consistent because you don't want one-off. Consistent support. Okay, where are we getting the support from? I'm a huge believer of counseling. We have many experts who can get involved in every single child living in an institution. Counseling should be given. Mentorship. Someone, at least one person in an institution, see you, inspire you, and want to know what is your dream. At least one. And young people, and a safe space to talk so that young people can share without having fear of judgment. Now, I'm going to be very, very honest. I'm going to talk on behalf of children living in institution because I was there for many, many years. We do not share to anyone. You might be an expert, I will not share to you my experience, my downside, how I'm feeling until I'm connected to you. So if you come and you go, you don't expect anything from me. So sometimes I think some of the counselors would agree, why is this child is not sharing anything? We don't share. We share to certain people who's always constantly there and really care for us. This one I believe. Okay, the second point, life skills and aftercare programs. I keep saying this over and over again and everyone is tired of me. Life skills is very, very important. Because it's about time that we introduce that in any institution that you're in. Because there will be a day where we will leave the nests. And then what happens? So what is the life skills? Again, I'm going to say financial literacy, job readiness, housing assistance, shelters. All these are the bridge to gap between living living care and also living independently. And the third point is most important is the sense of belonging. All of us wants to have that one sense of belonging, that we belong somewhere. Now it is true, maybe our peer group, or maybe through our community network, and or maybe a mentorship, by other caregivers, and not forgetting, this is what I'm going to emphasize here, that all of us here today, family members. Because we want to reunite children back to the family members. Okay, so family members plays important role. Kinship plays important role. Uncle, auntie, even grandparents, like my grandparents. They looked after me when I was still a small child before I was taken away from them. Even grandparents. Now, when caregivers are surrounded by community who believes in them, they do not just survive, they thrive. Because resilience is not about being unbreakable, okay? It is about being supported enough that no matter how many times you drop, you stand up. You fight and you keep. If you watch Nemo, you keep swimming. Who watched Nemo? I still watch Nemo, Disney's. Keep swimming. You will keep swimming no matter what. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. You're so right. You need to be seen, you need to be supported, and you need to be believed in. I remember one of the girls, I was going to her every day trying to teach her for almost like a year. And she always used to look at me with a very vacant eye. And suddenly, after 1.5 years, I saw the light of love in her eyes. And I can't tell you how it changed me as a person. And I realized I have to be there. They need you to be there. Unless, you prove that you are going to be there, you are going to turn up again and again, how are they going to change? Okay, now, Shankar, can you give an example of something that really worked? Maybe a program, a peer network, or even a personal strategy that made a difference in someone's life. Would you like to tell us that?
So if I start with the personal strategies, like what I use while interacting with caregivers or any individual. So being a bigger mental health professionals, it's quite challenging for me to work with care experience as a mental health professional with them, because it become a personal bias for me to work with them, because I connect with a lot of things with emotions, not as a like rational. So sometimes I avoid it, addressing as a mental health professional or interacting with them as a mental health professional, rather than being a brother, a friend to them. So most of the time, my personal experience, my personal strategy has been, I just invite them to come for dinner or lunch, just to come, I'll prepare a good dinner. So I'm very, very good cook. I really make good food, everything, pickle, everything, like everything. So if you want a good company, you can come to my home. And all the time is welcome. So this is how I interact. We all know that, whenever in a family, when we have a family, something is we want to discuss, we come for a dinner, we come on the table to have food. So simple that you guys follow, we do that. Is that the only difference is we are not able to create in our space. So we are that's what I saw it, and as a personal experience, I started inviting them to come for dinner, food, and movie. I take them out, long ride and all that. Apart from personal experience, what I do, as a group, as a whole community, few things I can see, so I can share the examples, there was one caregiver in my locality who was going through a lot, with the financially, and he was very stressed. And somebody approached to him, if you want quick money, you can become a host, medical host. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing right. You become a medical host. So he went there and became a medical host, and some tested drugs, and he earned 10 to 15,000. But he constantly fell sick after the medicine, and there was no legal action we could have taken. But how did we got to know that story? Okay, I'm coming to that point, that because of the peer network, the network we created. So in my state, we don't call an NGO the network, or something a community or network. We call a family in our place. So we have different approaches. We practice. So far now, as of now, we are not registered. We don't have any funds. It's an individual capacity we are doing. So we run a household gathering. So basically, as you have a family, you meet once in a month to have a food, go for a trip. Simple thing which you do, we do it. It's just we have created that thing in a normal way. So we meet every month, we talk, we do bring own food, we eat, we go for movie, we go to long trip, and we talk about. The simple thing is that we do uh, ask if you have anything to share, to ask anything, if you need any help. So it's become easier for them to share, just because they feel I belong here. The rightly said, Eric, that care leavers looking to see where they can belong, not to become like a lot of things. So this is one thing. Second thing, which coming to the plan, like third thing, like I would like to share that this is something I'm coming up with a new thing, which we realize we as a care leaver, we are very close to individual persons. We don't share in the group, but we share to individual person. So most probably, I'm praying over it that very soon our network will be registered and we will bring some funds for it to initiate. So we are planning to launch buddy system. So that will be like, individual care leaver can choose their own partner. They will go for a cafe date or a food date and talk to each other and then share what is the best thing about the time, and they can share to us. And we will, appreciate the initiative they did and the activity, and we're going to give them the prizes. So this is some simple initiative that we are thinking of doing that. Yeah. This is
In a way, both of you are saying the same thing, a
Yes.
sense of belonging and a sense of bonding, a group together which actually, thinks of the same problems and has the same kind of a background that they have suffered. And when they are together, there is always more openness, so which is very good. Now, Rashila, if you could speak directly to policymakers or care providers, because many of us here are care providers and some are policymakers, what would be your advice? What truth would you want them to know about care leavers? What changes would you ask them to bring about in the care leaving space?
Thank you for the question. Many times we feel that the world was built without us in mind. That's why now we say nothing about us without us. We grew up learning about we grew up grew up learning about how to adapt and survive in different setting, how to stay quiet in system that was never designed to hear us. Over time, the silence started to shape how we see ourselves as the most vulnerable one. So when we talk about creating a more welcoming world, I believe it starts with being seen, being heard, being respected, and believed when we tell you our story. It is about asking, what do you need, instead of what is wrong with you. If I could directly if I could directly if I could speak directly to policymakers and care provider today, I would say, don't just protect us, partner with us. Don't just design the program for us, co-create them with us.
Yeah.
I remember Justin brother from India shared in the last Baikan in Nepal, we cannot change any care leaver's past, but we can change their and our future. And this is possible when we come together and understand each other.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
A sense of belonging is not created in a paper. It is built through trust, through connection, and when the community comes together and walk with us in our journey, that is when healing begins. So how do we create most welcoming world for us? To those in the power of position, I would ask for three key things. First, don't forget that children still in institutional care in Nepal, Asia, and globally, over 80% of them have family. Make a space for care experienced youth in decision making as a co-creator or a partner. Second, invest in aftercare services, not just for education and living, but emotional support, mentorship, and socialization. And the third, shift the mindset from fixing children to fixing the system.
Very
Because
good.
we were never broken, our home was.
So no fixing the system. No
Our
fixing.
financial situation was. That's why it's very important to listen what we want. Thank you.
Very good. So we go about fixing children. We go about thinking that they are the troublemakers, but we don't try to fix the system. Very good, very good. Thank you. Now almost it's going to be time, so time to shake things up a bit. So I'm going to ask questions. You have to think and immediately answer. You are not going to get a lot of time because we don't have much time left. One word that describes how you are feeling today in terms of weather. In terms of weather. Means weather within.
Oh, weather within. I thought it was rainy or sunny or something.
Yes.
Okay, how I'm feeling? You know, I'm inspired.
One word.
Inspired.
Okay, very good. Okay, so now, Shankar, if you had to sum up your journey in one word, what would it be?
Inspired to inspire.
Wow, very good.
That's mine, isn't it?
Inspired to inspire. Very good. What's one myth about care leavers that you would like to burst? People think of care leavers in a certain way. What is that one thing you would like to burst?
That we are orphan.
You're right, 80% are not orphans actually. Some advice that you can give to how to handle stress.
I may look stressful right now, but that's just the situation. And it's not the how to handle stress. You're asking a medical doctor about that question. We are stressful all the time.
You're taking too many words.
Okay.
Although when you were speaking here and you were about to faint and you did not faint, so that showed how you handled your stress.
Probably. Okay, I'm just going to be very quick. How to handle stress. What I know is usually you seek someone that you're comfortable with. You share, you speak to them, you will not feel stressful. I think that you speak to someone that you're comfortable with.
Good. So now, Shankar, what's that one thing that instantly lifts your mood, no matter what? So what's your stress buster? Music, maybe?
No, when I cook
maybe
for others.
Memes or momos.
Like mostly when I cook for others, lifts me up.
And I will eat that
Very
food.
good. Okay, the last question to you, Rashila. If you could whisper something to your younger self, what would it be? If anybody else would like to, if you could talk to your younger self, what advice would you give yourself?
You are a blessed child.
You're going to be okay.
Great.
You
great.
just don't know that yet.
Okay, I have a very nice question, last question, and especially for Shankar. What would you choose? Tea, coffee, or therapy?
All three.
That sounds like
Not
that sounds
allowed.
like a question for
Not
me.
allowed.
but-
Okay, so we've heard the care leaders, talk about different aspects of their life, how they became their resilient self. What some recommendations which I could take out from the way they were talking and some recommendations that we heard in the morning, I would just like to recount some. Care experienced youth emphasize the urgent need for trauma-informed mental health care while in care or post-care. At least 2 to 3 years of post-care, it should be available to them free of cost from the government side. They also, some of the care leavers earlier when I was talking to them outside, and I think somebody here also talked about a national helpline, which is very, very essential, especially dedicated to care leavers, where care leavers could call because their questions would be different from any normal youth, other youth, normal. Speakers also advocated for investing in families so that the separation doesn't happen, children don't go away from adoption, and your own kith and kin, you don't even know them. So they also talked about that. And you also talked about nothing for us without us. So it has to be that young people have to be taken in all decision making. In the morning also they were talking enough of putting us in conferences and as speakers. Now let us be leaders. If you're not allowing us to give us chairs, we are bringing our own chairs. So that's a very good thing. And I also heard that you are wanting the policymakers and practitioners to listen to you, to respond to you, and to include you. You also have message for other caregivers, that take your lived experience as a guide and think together about actionable steps that create environments where you all don't just survive, but thrive. You learn to make choices, you belong. It's very important to belong to each other, be strong with each other, choose to rise together, rebuild your lives. Let others walk with you, and you walk with them. So thank you very much. It was such an interesting conversation. Thank you very much.